cartels have become propaganda machines, and they have really nailed down their expertise to recruit people or garner support through multiple avenues of propaganda. And we're going to get into every single way they do this and have infiltrated Mexican and international culture through propaganda. Welcome back to another episode of Borderland Dispatches, an Ironclad original with yours truly, Katarina. So this propaganda that was started by the cartels in around like the 1980s, 1990s, really started with music. Let's talk about an icon. We all know about this story, whether you're Mexican or not, whether you follow the Narco news or not, but Chalino Sanchez, who's from Culiacan and was subsequently murdered in Culiacan. Narco corridos were the start of a culture shift in Mexico that allowed the cartels to garner support from Mexican society because they were putting out banger songs, concerts were sold out, and at the same time, there was so much cartel lore around the very people who were singing about these narcos. So obviously, really infamous case is when, this video is still notorious today, when Chalino Sanchez is on stage at his final concert in Culiacan. He's handed a note. I'm going to reenact it. He's handed a note, reads the note, which allegedly was a death threat, wipes his sweat, and just, tengo el alma enamorada, no más de pensar, corazón, de soñarme noche, noche, dueño de tu amor. Banger that we all know. People who follow this news know about this video, but it's literally become like an international meme of a stressful situation and you just have to power through. And he became super notorious for this, then took 2 bullets to the head following the concert. So there's obviously a lot of theories as to why he was murdered, but that's not the point. What we're talking about today is how narcos have infiltrated basically every avenue of culture and now the digital age in order to garner support and make recruitment attractive. Because really, as we know, the only way for cartels to successfully operate is to have large numbers of support and people willing to put their lives on the line in order for these cartel operations to function. This started all the way back in the 1980s, and obviously it has not changed because we look at very popular Mexican music today and we see the rise of the Coridos Tumbos, which is really spearheaded by Peso Pluma, Natanael Cano, Junior H. These are figures who have become extremely popular in Mexican music. And truth be told, their music is a lot more explicit than it was during the Chalino era in the 80s and the 90s. Now these guys are literally singing. I actually have lyrics here. Luis R. Conriquez and Neton Vega have this song called El Plumas, and they literally sing, Las 4 letras siguen funcionando bajo perfil, por eso hemos durado, sigue rifando el señor de los gallos, which is basically CG&G keeps operating low profile. That's why we've lasted. And the king, I guess that would, señor, the man of the roosters is outdoing himself. Basically referring to El Mencho, the leader of CG&G. Okay, so the point of this is that even though these narco corridos have always existed and it's been a huge cultural thing, more than ever, this has become an extreme form of propaganda for the cartels because so many young people are listening to this music. It literally tops the Apple and Spotify charts, and they are explicitly referencing certain figures in the cartels, and certain actions, like talking about particular shootouts that have happened or certain scenarios that are really big in the narco culture. And the government, Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, has sort of been a real torchbearer in terms of trying to crack down on this. So there's like this new competition in Mexico where it's called Mexico Canta, Mexico Sings. And it's for like anyone across Mexico to join in this competition, singers, songwriters, bands, any type of musicians, musical artists, to showcase their music, talents, and their songs that have nothing to do with narco culture. Now, when Sheinbaum first presented this idea, it was very much like to combat the negative lyrics of this music. So like, we don't want to be encouraging cartel violence or degrading women or drug use or illegal activities, period. But she never, to my knowledge, explicitly mentioned to avoid propaganda or to like hinder the way the cartels are using music, and particularly Corridos Tumbados, as propaganda, which I think misses the whole point. Correct me if I'm wrong. Actually, that's a rhetorical question because I'm not wrong. This is textbook propaganda, because we can look at the American example in like the 90s when NWA and Two Live Crew were being censored for like inciting violence against women or the police, you know, fuck the police coming straight from the underground. Okay, no more singing. But like for those examples, they were explicitly being targeted by the US federal government for inciting violence. Whereas in Mexico's case, in the case we have now of the Corridos Tumbados or the Narco Corridos, you have these guys in music videos dripped out in head-to-toe Burberry, driving the AMG, singing about having a Rolex Presidential, living the good life, shooting with like the Scar machine guns, you know, like really the whole package of like bad boy luxury, like a real capo, a hard guy. And of course, for a lot of people, this is going to act as propaganda. Like it is going to fulfill that gap of, hey, you guys know that the cartels exist. You guys know that we make a lot of money, but look how fucking cool it looks. A lot of young people particularly, or who are looking to make money, are absolutely falling for that. So when the Mexican federal government comes out and is trying to discourage people from enjoying this music or listening to it, whatever the case may be, or supporting it, it's not a matter of trying to convince people that this music is inciting violence or explicit content, because that's always going to exist, whether it's gangster rap, whatever. The point is, this is blatant propaganda, showing people, hey, listen, you want to support El Señor de los Gallos, just like they're singing about El Mencho in that song I mentioned. You too can have stacks of Benjamin Franklins, be dripped out head to toe, have a fancy car, and have the hot girl with the BBL on her. When in reality, we know that this life is not that glamorous. That's exactly how propaganda works, right? You show all that glitters, but you don't show that all that glitters is not gold. It's really just showing one side of a very, very dark story and lifestyle. So here's the thing. This is obviously, the music is blatant propaganda and we're all being inundated with it. You hear it on the radios. I mean, it's different now because a lot of states and certain regions in Mexico and certain establishments have banned this music. You can't play it. DJs can't play it. It's not like if you go to a bar where you can like put the coin in and put a song on. Those songs are not available. There are ways that Mexico is trying to combat people listening to this type of music. However, this music continues to exist. And sure, certain songs are not on YouTube or Apple or Spotify because they've been banned, but it doesn't take away from the fact that this music, which is blatant propaganda, as I just said, is readily available and has become basically a pillar in Mexican culture. If we look back, like I mentioned, during Chalino's time in the 80s and the 90s, it wasn't the same. I mean, you just watch the videos, watch a video of him performing. Certainly, you know, there was still this air of violence. surrounding all of this culture and this musical genre. But Chalino's wearing a suit with his hat, and some of his songs were love songs. Whereas now, you're purely hearing about supporting CGNG or Los Chapitos. Like, it's really explicit cartel music with guys flaunting how much cash they have. And for any person who is maybe looking to be a part of this or has some sort of curiosity, this could often be the tipping point. That's just how propaganda works. So then, hand in hand with music, you have obviously the YouTubers and TikTok. This is such a big deal because even though propaganda has always existed, as we are in the digital age, I know I mentioned this time and time again, but let's be so for real. TikTok, any form of social media, is allowing for these criminals to literally have access to the public at their disposal. Like, they have a device, you post a video with a catchy song in the background. I've been on Cartel Talk. I mean, most of you guys watching probably have too, where they're like loading stuff into a light aircraft and they're ready to run business. This is exactly how propaganda works. You make something extremely illegal or like morally wrong. I'm not here to say what's right and wrong, but it's illegal. You make it seem cool. You make it seem catchy. You entice the viewer to think, hey, I could do that too. And so then you have Mexican YouTubers, like a really infamous example would be like Marquitos Toys, who has now been the victim of extreme threats, and then his brother was murdered. He's this Culiacan-based YouTuber who has millions of subscribers, shows off his luxury lifestyle, but then has alleged ties to the Sinaloa cartel and is now facing extreme violence. The regular viewer who has perhaps been watching him for years, initially, I would assume didn't think, oh my God, this guy is going to get murdered or his family is going to get murdered. They probably thought, holy shit, what's he doing and how do I get my money up like him? How do I live a cool lifestyle like that? How do I wear head-to-toe designer, go to Spain for a vacation, travel around the world, have a cool car, have a pretty girl? It sells this really sparkly, perfect package, but then inside it's like a Jack in the Box. You're just like winding it up, waiting for that bomb to explode, for the Jack to jump out, which for a lot of these people is literally a bullet to the head in broad daylight. So as glamorous as it may seem, this is exactly how propaganda works, right? We see this a lot in Sinaloa, where it's like you have these capos who are making a ton of money. This started off with Pablo Escobar, when you're making a ton of money through illicit means and you're building up your community. You're paying for someone's medical fees. You're paying for someone's post-secondary education. And to the person from the outside looking in, this is someone, like a Robin Hood. But at the end of the day, they're still responsible for so many hundreds of thousands of deaths and so much violence. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about these people putting hits out on so-and-so. It's about the public act of violence where you have a shootout in broad daylight in Culiacan where students just got out of high school and they're trying to run for cover because it's raining bullets. Something like that really taints that luxury lifestyle that's trying to be sold. Another thing it does is recruit people. So many people are consuming exactly what the cartels are wanting them to consume. They're receiving the message, and for a lot of people, they're acting on it. When I see these cartel recruitment WhatsApp group chats, there are some folks in there who are just ecstatic to be there. Some people are just curious. Some people are unsure. But for the most part, there are people in there who are like, I want to work for XY cartel and I believe I'd be a good fit, please bring me into your community, into your group. It's like trying out for the frickin' high school basketball team. You just want to be a part of something, and you feel like once you're chosen, you get this sense of validation. And propaganda will also do that because it will make you feel like, hey, if you actually have the guts to be a part of this idea, this lifestyle that we're trying to sell to you, and we accept you into this exclusive group, you're one of us. You're cool. You're now validated. That's how propaganda works. Point A to point B. Now, aside from this like pop culture aspect of propaganda that the cartels are running, which is obviously something newer, like it's kind of just taken on a life of its own, there are obviously the decades-long forms of propaganda that have been going on. And one of those examples would be the narcomantas and the public displays of violence. This is something that has always been really, has always stood out to me. Another reason why I actually got involved in this reporting was because for the longest time, I've always nerded out over news, global affairs, whatever, and particularly, clearly, organized crime. And so something that has been textbook for cartels and has gone viral worldwide were the narcomantas, hanging people from bridges, dismembering people, those public displays of propaganda to the most violent extent. So what's a narcomanta? Just for some of you who perhaps are new to this, welcome to the show. So often when cartels take out a hit and they leave a body, whether it in a public area, so whether that's on a highway or hanging from a bridge, which we used to see in the early to mid 2000s in Juarez a lot, where you would have the bodies hanging from bridges, the pants pulled down, just absolute, dehumanization to the furthest extent. There would also be a banner with written words on it that was either a threat, a message. It really varied depending on who was being targeted and what message the cartels wanted to send. We still see this happening to this day throughout various regions in Mexico. Typically, a message will read something like, this is what will happen to you. It'll be accompanied with a dismembered body. This is what will happen to you if you mess with so-and-so or this cartel. This is what happens when you're a rat and you snitch. It is the most violent and ostentatious way to show people, be afraid. We are the ones who have the power here. And I would say it works in terms of gaining power and inciting fear and promoting propaganda. I mean, come on. They work as if they're like a PR firm with that. It's better than putting out a press release because you have this handwritten message laying next to an absolutely battered body or bodies, telling the next person, hey, you better watch out. If that was directed to you or me, I mean, would you not be terrified? Because I would probably shit a brick. It's horrible. And this has been going on for years. Why? Because they know it's effective. They know that this is a way for them to flex their muscles. It shows power. It shows that they can do this and they can get away with it. Because honestly, you see this happen all the time, but then you never hear oh, so-and-so was arrested for the murder and dismembering and indignity to human remains of that person we found on the side of the highway with the narcomanta. You don't get a police follow-up to this. What message is that sending to people? That, hey, if your name shows up on that cardboard and you're next, you sure as hell are, be afraid. Because no one is going to go out there looking for the perpetrator. That's horrifying. And that is an extreme form of propaganda that the cartel has been implementing since day one, and that has been very effective for them. Not to mention, the certain cartels who put out these narcomantas will typically always take responsibility for it. There's no shame. So, you'll have that note, and then at the bottom of the note, it will be like XOXO CJ&G, basically, is what you're seeing. And so that's them showing you we are untouchable. It's very psychological, and let's talk about those psychological gruesome videos that were once on the dark web and now you can just find them on Twitter or in any WhatsApp group chat, of live people being interrogated and then getting beheaded, or people getting beaten, or just murdered. These videos have become so accessible. I remember a time when it was like, oh my God, someone, my friend's uncle has this video or showed me this video on the dark web of a Mexican cartel chopping a guy's head off. And it was like shocking. I mean, perhaps not for people living in cartel-ridden regions, like that was kind of just like their daily occurrence. But for others, it was very jarring. Whereas now, it's not jarring for anyone, because you take a quick browse anywhere on the internet and you find these videos, and they are extremely gruesome. These videos are used purely to intimidate rivals and civilians, and it works. Because any normal human being, when you watch a video like this, where someone is in real time becoming a victim to extreme violence, whether you consciously accept it or not, it incites fear. And it is telling you who's in charge and what they are capable of. At that point, the court of public opinion is stronger than any Mexican judicial body that will ever step in to stop this. Listen, the battle in Mexico isn't just on the streets. It's in the lyrics, on the screens, on the banners. It's all out in the public. And without a stronger oversight of social media and everything we're seeing digitally, this is only going to get worse. Like, we are at a point where an individual, a 16-year-old boy, could be scrolling on TikTok, come across a cartel-run TikTok account, go to the link in the bio, join a WhatsApp group chat, and be recruited into a Mexican drug cartel. How easy is that? It is literally at your fingertips to join the cartels. And it's international. It's not just kids like from a pueblito in Mexico. It's anyone from Chicago to Toronto to Australia. It doesn't matter. And it's making it harder than ever before for authorities to crack down on this. Especially once this ideology has been ingrained into a society, into a culture as a whole, how do you unlearn that? I mean, you just look at like ISIS and Taliban propaganda, and these are great examples too, especially now that the cartels have been designated as foreign terrorist organizations, because they really are running propaganda the same way these other terrorist groups have. They know exactly what it takes. And I say this time and time again. They operate like a Fortune 500. And social media management is just one part of that. That can also make them so much more money. When you have cool guys like Peso Pluma singing about supporting the Chapitos, and you have millions of listeners enjoying that music and thinking that it's cool, wanting to dress like him, get their haircuts like him, how much of a step away are they from actually joining them, being a part of them? Mexico is responding to this blatant propaganda. Through their Mexico Sings initiative, but also there was an operation recently where the Mexican government, like digital experts went in and removed like 40 TikTok accounts that were blatantly linked to cartels, particularly to CG&G, in terms of pushing propaganda and recruitment. And so the action is there. But the cartels are operating at such a high level with this. How does the Mexican government or the US government even begin to disperse resources to tackle every operation that the cartels are running? Because certainly propaganda and social media is just one of the concerns. However, I would dare to say that it is a root concern, because you are bringing in people, you're hiring people, you're convincing people of a certain ideology, and that makes it a root of the problem of organized crime. I don't know where this will go from here. I know that these musicians won't stop creating this music. I know people won't stop enjoying it. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm a freaking saint. Like, of course, there are certain songs I'm like, this is good. Obviously. But it's good because we're just a consumer enjoying music. There are other people listening to it, and it's so much more than music. It becomes a lifestyle, and it becomes this really attractive lifestyle that could lead to their demise. How do you take on propaganda? I don't have an answer. And if certain officials and government authorities don't have an answer, how in the world would I? Thank you so much for listening to this episode. There's so much to unpack here, and we could probably talk for hours. This was it for Borderland Dispatches, an Ironclad original with Katarina Schultz. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this podcast with everyone you know. And like I always say, I'll see you next time.